Resuming debate, the honourable member for St. Albert Edmonton.
Madam Speaker, for 54 days, the then Minister of Public Safety and current Minister of National Defence slow-walked a CSIS warrant. The subject of the warrant was none other than a former Ontario Liberal Cabinet Minister and top organizer and fundraiser for the Prime Minister in the GTA. This same former Liberal Cabinet Minister is also been someone long suspected of being involved in Beijing's interference activities on Canadian soil. At the public inquiry, national security officials testified that warrants of this kind are typically signed off by the minister between 4 and 10 days. Consistent with that, during the same time of this warrant, the minister signed off on 2 other warrants within 4 to 8 days. But when it came to a warrant involving a former Liberal Cabinet Minister and top organizer and fundraiser for the Prime Minister, it took 54 long days. Now, we know, based upon the evidence at the inquiry, that this was no accident. It's not as though the warrant application fell through the cracks on the minister's desk, which in and of itself would raise serious questions about the minister's competence. What happened was much more serious. There was a concerted effort within this government to slow-walk the warrant into a Liberal kingpin. Here are the facts. The minister's chief of staff was given notice by CSIS that they intended to bring forward the warrant application in respect of the former Ontario Liberal minister. 2 weeks after the warrant sat on the minister's desk, CSIS followed up with the minister's chief of staff. The warrant continued to languish on the minister's desk for 30 more days. Indeed, it was not until the director of CSIS personally intervened did the minister finally sign off on the warrant. The question is why? What took so long? When I raised this question in the House during question period, I received a non-answer from the minister. The minister and his chief of staff testified at the public inquiry. At the inquiry, they provided no credible explanation for the delay. Canadians deserve answers about why it took 54 days in which national security may have been compromised. So I put it to the government, what is the explanation?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Rural Economic Development and the Minister responsible for the Atlantic Canada Opportunities Agency.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It's a pleasure for me to rise today and to speak about the important issue of combating foreign interference in our democratic institutions. It's a little ironic for my colleague to talk about political interests in matters of national security when his leader still will not take his security clearance to learn more about foreign interference taking place in his party. Madam Speaker, since coming to office, our government has taken a range of measures to address the threats of foreign interference, such as amending the Canada Election Act in 2018, creating both the National Security and Intelligence Review Agency as well as the National Security and Intelligence Committee of Parliamentarians, standing up to a range of initiatives to strengthen our electoral system against cyber and other threats through the plan to protect Canada's democracy in advance of the 2019 election, and building upon and further strengthening that plan to advance, of course, in the advance of the 2021 election. Ensure that key protections against foreign interference are not limited to the election period, banning intentionally false and misleading statements about election activities or the voting process to disrupt an election or its results, prohibiting contributions through money orders, prepaid gift cards, or crypto assets whose source can be difficult to trace. Introduce new third-party contribution rules to increase transparency and mitigate the so-called dark or foreign funds from entering the system. Madam Speaker, if passed, these amendments would continue the cycle of continuous improvements to Canada's electoral process. The members will have a chance to study, of course, the amendments proposed in C-65, and we look forward to the discussion that will follow. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The honourable for St. Albert Edmonton.
The parliamentary secretary acts as if the Liberals are bystanders, and yet we're talking about a specific warrant that sat on the minister's desk for 54 days, despite repeated attempts by CSIS to have the minister sign off on the warrant. And I simply asked for an explanation. Why did it happen? Isn't the reason it happened was because it was about protecting a Liberal kingpin? It was about protecting someone who the Prime Minister saw as benefiting himself, as being a Liberal organizer and fundraiser for the Prime Minister? Isn't it the case that once again this government put the partisan interests of the Liberal Party and the Prime Minister ahead of national security?
The honourable parliamentary secretary.
Madam Speaker, the government is committed to protecting and strengthening Canada's democracy. We look forward to the ongoing work of the public inquiry into foreign interference in the federal election process and democratic institution, including the Commissioner's final report in December 2024. The government will review the report in due course, of course. In the meantime, Madam Speaker, the government continues to take steps to counter foreign interference. This includes proposed amendments to the Election Act recently introduced through Bill C-65. Madam Speaker, I look forward to the ongoing engagement with the member of this House as we consider potential changes to further protect and strengthen our Canadian democracy. And I want to take the opportunity, of course, to wish my colleague and everybody in the House happy holidays, and we'll see you, of course, in the New Year.